Welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you so much for joining us for another segment. In this segment, we're going to be speaking with Heidi Hinrichs. She's joining us here from Abbott to talk about finding her career path while studying biomedical engineering and learning how innovative medical technology can transform lives for the better. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Heidi.
Thank you so much for having me, Neil. I appreciate it.
Well, I did, of course, say that you're joining us here from Abbott. Give us a bit of your professional background and talk about what it is that you do at Abbott.
Absolutely. So I'm a biomedical engineer by training, and here at Abbott, I work in our cardiac rhythm management business. So what we do is we restore patients' heart to their natural rhythm, as well as monitor your heart rhythm to ensure it's beating appropriately at the absolutely appropriate rate and rhythm.
When you say normal rhythm, is that normal for everyone or normal for a specific person?
No, yep. It actually is. There is something called a normal sinus rhythm, so a normal rhythm for your heart, and so we ensure that we're constantly restoring that rhythm back to its normal sinus rhythm.
How big of a problem is being out of rhythm as far as their heart is concerned?
Well, there's quite a few patients that require what we call implantable cardioverter defibrillators. And I think you've talked to my past colleague, Dr. Avi Fisher, in the past about that. Yes. And those hearts literally shock your, the patient, puts them back into normal sinus rhythm when they they're in a fast ventricular heart rhythm that can be very dangerous. And then there's also patients who require their heartbeats too slow, so they might faint or be very, very short of breath. And those patients have an abnormally slow rhythm, and we have pacemakers that actually increase that rate to a more normal sinus rhythm at an appropriate rate.
Now, I understand that you're very passionate about fostering youth interest, particularly among young girls, in STEM careers. What is a STEM career?
STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And as we think about that, historically, as you probably are very aware, women have been very few and far between in those areas of professions. And in fact, when I was when I was an undergrad as a biomedical engineer, that was one of the largest percentage of women back in the day, and that was only 30% women. And the other professions in engineering was much, much, much smaller. And so as we've grown over the years, and certainly Abbott has been a company that has really promoted this through some of its high school internship programs and co-op programs with young women, we have been able to increase those percentages of women in science and in STEM. And so one of the programs that we partner with is called Project Scientist. This is a program whereby young girls ages 4 to 14 are able to go after school or during the summer. They'll go to various biotech companies and they'll learn about different professions in STEM. They'll see science experiments. They'll, in our case, they'll see our manufacturing facility. They'll practice gowning up and understand what a sterile environment is. They'll learn about the anatomy of the heart, and they'll actually get to speak to women who are scientists. Some are biologists, some are engineers like myself, some are software programmers, so various professions in STEM, and so that they can have role models as well as mentors where they can see someone that's just like them that's in a science career.
Did STEM lead you to your current role at Abbott? And if so, how do you apply your STEM background to the work that you do currently at Abbott?
Yeah, it absolutely did. So, I was in high school at the time, and I was very interested in science and math. I was one of those rare kids, and my dad was really good about bringing home different things that engineers designed. And one time he actually brought home a Newsweek article of all things that showed a picture and an article on the total artificial heart, the very first implant at the University of Utah of the total artificial heart. And I thought that was something incredibly amazing and said, okay, this is what I want to do. How do I get there? So I went into biomedical engineering. And then from there, I actually started working right out of graduate school with St. Jude Medical, which is now Abbott, working in clinical trials on artificial heart valves. And over the years, I've worked in our different cardiovascular medical device products. And one of the things that I've learned, that you learn when you're in engineering is you really learn how to problem solve. You learn how to be very analytical. So you learn how to design experiments, you learn how to analyze data, and you learn how to write reports. And over my career, I've been very heavily involved in writing clinical protocols and analyzing data and writing clinical reports. And that's something that I continue to do today. Now I'm reviewing them, not so much writing them like the scientists who work for me.
All of the things that you mentioned that you've been involved in, were these opportunities available to women in the early days of STEM? How have these opportunities changed over the past few years?
I think these opportunities were available, but I think that there just were not significant women going into those careers. There are, so those percentages have increased over time. My entire career that spanned over the last 30 years, in those 30 years, I've only had one female boss, and that was for about a year and a half. So most of my career, I have not had women in higher positions that have been able to be role models or mentors. At Abbott, we're seeing a lot more women leaders. We're seeing a lot more women that are in those positions, but we're also very much involved in reaching out into our communities through programs like Project Scientist, sponsoring high school internships for women and minorities to really increase that diversity and exposure to science, to STEM programs and STEM professions, having co-op programs, and having affinity groups at Abbott, employee affinity groups like Women Leaders of Abbott and Women in STEM that allow for a natural networking and a natural mentorship and role models for young women, and in some cases, like in Project Scientist, 4-year-old girls to actually see when they're young.
Is there still a resistance, for lack of a better term, to women going into engineering fields?
I don't know that it's so much a resistance in the education per se and the percentage of women anymore that are going into that, right? I think as we've progressed, we're seeing more women in those university settings and in those undergrads. But what we haven't gotten to at this point in time is we haven't seen a lot of women leaders in the C-suite or in executive positions. We're starting to see more of that, but we really need to lift women up and help provide role models so that they are be able to, I would say, lift themselves into that next level of management. One of the things that I often talk about with future women leaders at Abbott is I talk about being comfortable being uncomfortable, meaning when you know that you're uncomfortable, you're probably growing, you're doing something new, but that's a good thing because that's how you grow. That's how you discover. That's how you address your curiosity. And so that's one of the things that I often tell young women as they're starting out their career and building on their career.
Are there any men involved in the STEM programs that you've been involved with that are helping to encourage women, or is this solely women helping women?
No, absolutely. And, as I said, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for some of the men mentors in my career, or even my own father who offered up, addressed my curiosity in the profession. And so we do have men that are part of some of the leadership of some of these affinity groups that often provide mentorship, opportunities to women in their career. And so you have to have both. It can't be one way in order to ensure that there is diversity built into building up the women and minorities into those upper leadership, executive leadership roles.
Well, if you would give us a website where our listeners can learn more about STEM.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go on Abbott.com, and Abbott.com does have a career piece where you can click on and learn about high school internship opportunities, co-op program opportunities, and other career opportunities at Abbott. In addition to that, if you actually go onto Abbott.com, there's actually a playbook. So if there's other industry or other companies or organizations that are interested in how to build their own high school program and how to encourage women in STEM, there's a playbook on Abbott.com that can help provide that information to them. Abbott partnered with a foundation called STEM Connector that helped them with that. And then Project Scientist itself, which I would have loved to have gone to as a kid when I was between the ages of 4 and 14. Their website is projectscientist.org. And you can see various opportunities, after school opportunities and summer programs that are available. And Abbott partners, of course, with Project Scientist as well.
Well, Heidi, I appreciate you joining us here on Health Professional Radio and giving us this information. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Heidi Hinrichs. She's joining us here from Abbott. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, listen in, download at SoundCloud, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.